Now, this has been a hot topic in PFT land for the last day or so. I don't think the NFL appreciates that we are agitating in this specific area, and I don't really care. But there are two ways for me to get myself into trouble. One is accidentally, which happens all the time, and I don't really get to enjoy it because I didn't realize that what I was saying was going to get me in trouble. The other way is when I know damn well that anything I say can and will be used against me. This is one of those times because I know they're not happy that we're raising these questions. But, Charean, the Super Bowl MVP voting process is flawed. It's flawed. 16 voters. Yeah. That's not nearly enough, first of all. And there's another 4-vote chunk that comes from fan voting that begins well in advance of the end of the game. But, apart from the size of the voting block, the idea that they want the votes before the 2-minute warning, and the league told me, well, we confirm them after the game, and it's loose, and we want their idea, and then we'll go back to them. Why not just say no votes until the clock strikes 0? What's so hard about that, especially with only 16 people? Why do we have to know who the MVP is if the confetti is still in the air?
Well, and that's the thing, Mike, because I have done this for several years because the Pro Football Writers of America president does it, and the Pool Reporter, which I've done a few times, has a vote. So I've done this several times. And you talk about being a controversy over the last few days. I did a search in our system. MDS wrote the same exact story in 2019 about the process and how it was flawed and how Gilmore or Hightower should have been the MVP. And I did vote that year, and I voted, I think it was for Julian Edelman, because there was, obviously the defense had played great, but there wasn't truly that one standout. And what happens is they start asking for your vote about the 5-minute mark. Hey, do you know who you're going to vote for? The only year that I've done it, that it was cut and dried, was the year that Von Miller won it, 2015 season, when he just killed, obviously, Cam Newton and the Panthers. And the game was a blowout, and it was obvious Von Miller was the MVP. Otherwise, it is a question up until the end of the game, or has been a question up until. So 5-minute mark, they start asking, and then they start asking again. When, do you have your decision? So finally you say, okay, if the Rams win, it's going to be Matthew Stafford. If the Bengals win, it's going to be Joe Burrow. And that's usually the way it goes. And it's usually the quarterback, because if one of those guys wins it on a comeback, then usually it's the quarterback who has led the comeback. So I know a voter who said that. Joe Burrow, Matthew Stafford. Cooper Kupp scored the touchdown, changed the vote to Cooper Kupp. End of the game, may or may not have changed it to Aaron Donald. But, you think about, well, I've already changed it once after the 2-minute warning, and sometimes you don't change it at all. Sometimes you're busy writing your game on deadline, writing the game story on deadline, especially if you're covering you're a beat reporter for the Rams or you're a beat reporter for the Bengals. You're busy. You may not change your vote. So that's how it came to be, and I don't really necessarily have a problem with it being Cooper Kupp, but I would have voted for Aaron Donald, and I think in retrospect, if all of those voters who voted for Cooper Kupp had it to do today, I think they would vote for Aaron Donald.
I remember sitting next to you during Super Bowl 53 as there was no obvious MVP, and I think you were talking to John McClain about it, who was on the other side of you, I believe, because I think you both had a vote that year, and or you did and he didn't, or whatever it was. You were struggling to come up with who the MVP should be, and I suppose it's Julian Edelman, but my argument is very simple. And if the NFL wants to dominate another day of the week, just announce it today. We waited 5 freaking weeks to find out who the regular season MVP was. We can wait 24 hours for the Super Bowl MVP. Make it the Tuesday after the Super Bowl is always the day that we find out the Super Bowl MVP. Give the voters an opportunity to go back and rewatch the game in a quieter setting, to reflect on whatever notes they have, look at the stats, talk to colleagues and friends, and see what people have written about it. Because, from my perspective, like right after the game, one thing I remembered was, and that stood out to me, was the drive that the Bengals had after the interception when the ball went off of Ben Skowronek's hands and it was picked off by Chidobe Awuzie, and the Bengals were up by 4 after the long touchdown throw from Burrow to T. Higgins when Jalen Ramsey got his face mask yanked and pulled and knocked to the ground. that if the Bengals score a touchdown on that drive, it's over. It's over. The floodgates are going to open. That was the vibe in the stadium. It's over at that point if the Bengals score a touchdown. And you know, we don't know what's going to happen next. Matthew Stafford comes out and presses again, throws another pick, and the next thing you know, it's an 18-point margin. But Aaron Donald on that drive had 2 sacks to result in a field goal.
Yeah.
And I didn't remember that he had 2 sacks on that drive in the moment. Like, there's a lot that you got to remember. We're human beings. And you only have 16 human beings that are the collective brain trust for this, and they're expected to make their decisions during the game. And you're going to have 20% of the total vote hinge on whatever drunk-ass yahoo decides to – and I'm sorry. I mean, I used to be the drunk-ass yahoo watching the game at home. Why do you want to give somebody who's a drunk-ass yahoo watching the game at home a voice collectively that counts for 4 votes on top of the 16 that come from – the list of media members that have no transparency whatsoever? That's the other part of it that bothers me too. Why is it all a secret?
Yes.
Why is it a secret? And if you're not comfortable as the voter letting it be known that, number one, you're a voter, and number two, what your vote was, then let someone else do it. I mean, come on, put yourself out there. There needs to be transparency in these matters. If there isn't transparency, you know what I end up thinking? I end up thinking that the league just picks who they want the MVP to be, and there's never any way to disprove it.
Well, I don't know what year, Mike, and I did tons of Google searches and I couldn't find it. But it was not so long ago that they listed the 16 members of 2001. They started letting fans in, so they listed the fans' vote. And I did find that where they listed first, second, and third and how many votes each of those got. And then they listed the media members who voted that year. And then they listed the vote totals, first, second, third, however many players got votes. You saw it. And remember, we used to get all those papers at the Super Bowl. They just papers in quotes, which they don't give out anymore, and it was listed. But at some point, they quit listing the voters and they quit listing the vote totals. And I can't figure out when that happened. But I even go back to the year, I remember Marshawn Lynch and the controversy of, well, they didn't give the ball to Lynch because they wanted Russell Wilson to be MVP. And I laughed about it because votes were already in at that point. Russell Wilson was going to be the MVP if the Seahawks had won that Super Bowl, regardless of whether Lynch got that touchdown or not. I guarantee you there wouldn't have been enough votes changed to change it. And as it turned out in that Super Bowl, frankly, the MVP should have been Malcolm Butler, and I think it was Tom Brady that year, and it shouldn't have been. It should have been Malcolm Butler for that final play that he made. So, yes, if I'm a voter on it again, I want my vote out there. I want to say who I voted for. I want to know that my vote really got changed at the end, and I voted for Aaron Donald if that was the case, and I changed it from Matthew to Stafford to Cooper Kupp to Aaron Donald if that's the case. But you made the point of making it Tuesday. I think it'd be really cool even if they do it at that Monday MVP press conference and we don't know who the MVP is and he just shows up there and they announce it there. That would even be cooler than the way they do it now.
I just would like the people who are voting to have more time to come to the right conclusion. And maybe the right conclusion was Cooper Kupp. But I think it's all rushed, it's hurried, it's flawed, and hopefully the NFL is paying attention and will do something about it. Chances are they are not. And by the way, if I recall correctly, Tom Brady gave Malcolm Butler the Chevy that he got when he won the Super Bowl MVP in the 2014 season, Super Bowl 49.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.